Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. Ms. Mountain set this night up to maybe answer a few questions, to go over a few things as far as the transition from middle school to high school. The biggest thing that I want to get across to parents and students is, when you get into the 9th grade, whether you pass or not is based on credits. You have to have 6 credits per year, and that's 4 core credits. So if your son or daughter comes in and they piddle fart around and only get 4 that year, well then they're going to start the next year labeled as a 9th grader. They won't move, they'll take 10th grade classes, but they're going to be labeled as a 9th grader. And I'll give you an example why this will affect them down the road. I had a phone call with a parent yesterday, tore up because we're giving the ACT next Wednesday. Her son is taking junior classes, but he's listed as a 10th grader. He don't take the ACT. That's his fault. We've told him and told him and told him. Teachers are going to stay on the kids about their grades, but it's 100% up to your child to pass, to keep up with it. We're not going to beg them to do their work. We have summer school every year. If the child does fail 1 or 2 and he comes to summer school, then he can make it up and move on to the next grade. We see it every year where they might fail 1 or 2 classes and they don't come to summer school because they think it's no big deal. Well, they're starting back off in the grade they were just in. And if they really don't think about it, or it don't affect them until they want to do something like sports or prom, or if you happen to be labeled as a 10th grader, you're not going to prom unless you're asked by an 11th or 12th grader. And these rules are hard to take sometimes, but guys, you got to understand, it's about credits. And if you ain't got 24 credits as a senior, you will not graduate. We have some every year that don't graduate. They don't get a diploma. Now they can come to summer school after graduation and make up a class or 2, and we'll hand them their diploma, but they don't walk. And that's a tough lesson. But it's high school, it's not middle school anymore. You have to have a C average to play sports in your core classes. Electives does not count. Everybody can get 100 in PE. Your core classes, your science, your math, your English, and your histories. If you don't have a C average between those 4 classes, you will not play sports. We offer dual enrollment. As a 10th grader, you can take history. And then as an 11th grader, of course, we have English, biology, and lots of other stuff opens up. But on campus, we got history, English 101, 102, and biology 101, 102 that are taught by our teachers. And I say that to say this. If your child does dual enrollment with another teacher like at Sneed or Northeast, and they have a problem, they don't come to us. They're not our student in that class. We're not going to help them. They chose to take that dual enrollment class at Sneed or at Northeast. That's not our problem. That's your child's problem. If he fails, then he will be on probation, which means the next semester he can't take a dual enrollment course. Now that's passed down from Sneed, Northeast, the 2 schools that we dual enroll through. Now if you take it on campus with our biology or English or our history, then of course the teacher's there 24/7 to help them through the course. But guys, we face it every day. Okay, kids think they can dual enroll and that we're going to do their work for them. That's not how it works. Dual enroll is great. It pushes you ahead. It gets you places you want to be. But guys, you got to understand, it's rigorous. and it requires a lot out of you, especially you that play athletics. It ain't easy, okay? That's some of the things to think about. AP courses. You know, AP courses are very rigorous also. AP courses really get you ready for college. You do all the research you want to. AP is tougher than dual enrollment. AP will get your child ready for college. Now, with that being said, not everybody will get an AP. Your GPA has to be so high, as it does with dual enrollment also. Your GPA have to be a certain height. But it's very rewarding, okay? Of course, we offer access classes for a few classes that we don't offer here. French and criminal justice and stuff like that. That's through access. Once again, that's nothing to do with us, okay? And sometimes that's hard for the parent and the child to understand when you're dual enrolling or you're doing access. We have no control over those grades, none. Whatever grade comes from the college or the access instructor is what you get on your report card. Okay? So think about things like that before you jump into something just because your friend done it. Patriot Preview Day. We will have a Patriot Preview Day where all the ninth graders will come to campus, the new ninth graders. It'll be probably the week before school actually starts. Parents, you'll drop your children off, sign them in, and we have a whole, it goes from like 8 to 12, where they'll go through the whole school, talk to most of the teachers. They'll find out everything they need to know about high school, how to get around and how to be here. Now, most of these kids have been through these hallways because of band or art or whatever other reason, but it still helps them get acclimated into the high school setting. We'll send more information out about that. Like I said, it'll be probably a week before school starts. Discipline. There's going to be some new rules coming down about discipline. With prom, for example, if you're a discipline problem, getting in trouble all the time, you know, we keep it on Power School. Everything the child's done from kindergarten all the way to 9th, 10th, 12th grade, we've got it. It's pulled up on their discipline record. Once they get in 9th grade, if that discipline record's filled, probably not going to get to go to prom. You know, and I hope you understand that, but why would we let a child that's in constant trouble at school, constant disciplinary actions, go to prom to where he or she would cause trouble there and ruin it for the other students? We're looking at new rules now for disciplinary actions as far as going to extracurriculars, you know, to a football game. If you're suspended or in ISS or whatever, you probably won't get to go to a football game until you're done with that. And if that keeps going, well, then we'll probably cut that out. It's just, ever since COVID has hit, you know, the school setting, the culture's kind of changed. Kids are used to sitting at home and really they're starting to get back to somewhat normal, but it's still nothing near normal. That they don't think that, you know, they have to do certain things. And that, excuse my language, that stupid little phone that they have is 90% of our problems in high school. And I will say this, there's going to be new rules affecting cell phones that the county's going to be putting down after this summer. I'll give you an example. When students walk into a classroom, their cell phone's going to be put in whatever, a lockbox or a, you know, little thing you see on the kindergarten walls where you put names and stuff. Some way, some fashion, that phone's going to be put up. They're not going to be allowed to have a phone during class. After class, they can get their phone and go to the next class. So, you know, if they've got to check their Snap or their how many friends they got or how many, whatever. They can do that walking down the hallway, you know. But in-class problems with cell phones is one of the biggest problems we have here. Now, we consider ourselves lucky. We don't have the problems Huntsville and all that's got. You know, if that's what we got to deal with, then we're okay. But it's still very distracting to teachers, you know, and a lot of the trouble that gets caused, and then it's if a fight happens, well, they got them things out and they're whatever, and then it's sent out to everybody. And we'll talk to students more about that. You know, students, if you do something like that and put it out on social media, you can be held accountable and have to go with our SRO. Cell phones it's not a joke, and it's getting worse. So the county is going to crack down a little bit more. You know, I'll give you Coleman, for example. Coleman City Schools, you're not allowed a cell phone period on campus. None. Now, I don't know if we'll get like that, but guys, it's getting rough. I know parents, I know you see it at home. I mean, you know, I talked to somebody here a couple weeks ago about the cell phone. Well, he's got to have it in case I got to get a hold of it. No, you know, there's an office to call. There's no emergency that we can't get to your child as quick as you can. None. I don't understand that thought coming from a parent. I got to be able to get in touch with them. But I'm going to get off that soapbox. On that Patriot Preview Day, we'll go over the 4-year plans, testing schedules, any changes, textbooks, attendance rules, discipline, lockers. We'll probably continue to have some lockers. If, you know, we offered them this year, we've probably got 50 or 60 kids that took advantage and bought lockers, okay? Usually it's more the 9th grade than it is anybody. So we'll probably do that again. Dress code. Dress code seems to be getting hit a lot here lately too. I don't know where they get some of their clothes, but Lord. And then the Patriot Cup, which is a thing that the SGA does, and you know, we do certain events during the year, and there's points given for each event to the class that does the best, and the winner at the end of the year, you know, gets like a field trip. So a lot of good things, guys. I'm not sitting here trying to scare you, okay? I'm just being real with you, and looking forward to seeing everybody. I've had most of these kids in 5th grade, so I'll get to see them again. But it's different, guys, okay? It's not middle school anymore. Y'all go from the top of the pecking order back down to the bottom again, okay? That's just a little bit of a transition to get used to, okay? We've got Miss Fountain here. For those of you that don't know, Miss Gibbs is retiring in July. Miss Fountain will move over to the high school. She will be our high school counselor. I know you're familiar with her, so I'm hoping that will help in some transition issues also. And then we got Mr. Buddy Sweat from the Marshall Technical School here, and he's going to explain some things about tech, okay? Once again, guys, thank y'all for coming, and if I can do anything, all you got to do is reach out. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things that I gave everybody, or tried to, was this paper as you walked in, just about graduation requirements. Just to follow Coach Bowen for just a minute to say that most of the time I will see 9th graders as they come up to high school, and they will, I'll talk to them about like how's high school since you left middle school. And most of them have positive things to say, but it is quite an adjustment, just as it was when they came to 5th grade and didn't know where anything was and had to get used to changing classes when they didn't do it as much in elementary school. This is another big benchmark year that it is a huge adjustment. And I can say that from other kids I've talked to, and I can say that because I had a kid who was a 9th grader last year. It is a huge adjustment. But they do well most of the time, and most of the kids truly do love it. They get a little bit more freedom than they did in middle school because they are older, but with that freedom comes an expectation of more independence. So, you know, they're going to expect them to do that. When we're in middle school, we try to prepare them to go into high school, and high school is trying to prepare them to go into the workforce or into college. So when they do things like certain things with dress code and certain things with expectations about turning in assignments and that kind of thing, I don't know why. It seems like it's because they know at the next level that's going to be a big deal. You know, if you're on the work job, if you're on a particular job and there's a due date for some big report or whatever, that's usually a very serious due date. When we get to be an adult and our water bill's due on a certain day, it's a serious due date. And, you know, when you go to college and you have a due date, it's an important thing. And I know that's one of the things that, you know, it's going to be stressed more when they get in high school. The other thing, I was talking to a couple of classes today, I didn't get into all of them, but another thing that we stress a lot, and I always want to stress it with parents, is what a credit is and how it is. And if you've had older kids, you know this process, but if this is your first experience with high school, it is super important. I think at the middle school, a lot of times we are so focused on the 4 core classes, history, science, math, and English, just to make sure that they're ready for things. And sometimes just in the way we interact, we kind of sometimes treat PE and some of those other classes like they're not as important, and they are in a different way. But in high school, every single class is a credit earning class. So your potential for earning credit for band or PE it's a credit just like a math or an English or, you know, those credits. So it's important to know that. And you can interject if I'm saying anything wrong, because I know some of this, usually I do with the high school counselor, but she couldn't come tonight. But with credits, to earn a credit, you're going to have to make 60 or above final, like a semester average for that first semester, and you get like a half a credit for each semester. So if in English, I make a 60 or above as my first semester average. Now that's first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, average together has to be above a 60 to earn that credit. Then if I do that again for second semester, I've earned 1 credit for English, okay? As you can tell on this list right here, this is what is required. This is not DAR high school, this is the state of Alabama requires that they have to have 24 credits to graduate. And this is what those credits need to be. They have to do 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math, 4 credits of history, and 4 credits of social studies as the 4 core ones. But there are also some other ones, as you'll notice at the bottom, like you have to have a half a credit of health to graduate. You have to have so many, you have to have 1 year, 1 full credit of career preparedness, and you have to have so many electives that fall in certain categories. All of that's on here. Now this is just the basic information to get a diploma. There are opportunities as you go further into high school, and I'm sure they'll go over this more at Patriot Preview Day, and I didn't bring it with me because sometimes it's overwhelming enough to go into ninth grade, so I wanted to make sure that we just gave you the basic information. But this information is just to get a standard diploma. There are opportunities to get honors and some of those things that you'll have the opportunity to do, and they'll explain that more later. But regardless of what diploma you choose or any of those accolades, that's on top of this. This is the very basic and the very standard thing to do. So some of the things that he talked about was stuff that I have learned over the last few years, like you have to pass at least 6 credits to be considered moving on up. You know, so this whole process here is something that you want to have and keep. We go into classes every year and go over this, and we talk to the kids about making a plan. And the 4-year plan, every year 8th graders sometimes get a little stressed about that, and I'm like, look, I may plan to go home today and clean my entire house. It's a plan. You need a plan to meet all these 24 credits, but you don't have to follow that exact plan you made in 8th grade all the way through. You're going to change your mind as more opportunities come up, but you need to make sure you're checking these off. And as you go through high school, every counselor that's been at the high school, they just go through with the kids every year, make sure they're doing this, because they can't hand you a diploma unless you're doing these things. So I do want to make sure that you know, even down to the PE, all those things. Now, one of the categories that's on here is for electives, you have to have at least 3. Arts education, career or tech education, or world languages, you have to have at least 3 that fall under those categories. And one of those opportunities to meet that particular requirement will be through the tech school that Mr. Sweat will talk about. So I'll kind of lead into that in just a minute. The other thing is, this form came home with every 8th grader, and if they've not brought them back, we've been, on them and on them and on them. I know Mr. Hammett's been trying to help me get some more of these forms in. They brought this form home because in the 9th grade, Ms. Gibbs and I, the high school counselor, and I walked through with them and talked to them about picking an English, picking a math, picking a science, picking a history. Because in 9th grade, the schedule every year in 9th grade is going to be pretty tight, because you're going to have the 4 core, English, a math, a history, and a science. You can't do dual enrollment and all that in the 9th grade. And then you'll have some form of PE, which could be done through a sport, and they were explained what that was, and it's on here too. And then they have to do career prep, because as you can tell, that's a required class to graduate, and they try to get it out of the way in the 9th grade so that your student has more opportunities with that out of the way to do other things that they would rather do. So that only leaves 1 spot for an elective. So if your child's in band, it's probably band. If your child's doing some of that. So anyway, they got to pick, and we went through what some of those options are. So in 9th grade, it's a pretty set, tight schedule. They get to pick 1 elective. They get to tell us what type of PE they're gonna do, those kinds of things. I know some band kids picked jazz band and marching band, that kind of thing. And there's we went over some things and requirements that are in there. I think the band stuff does count as PE credit still. So we went through that with them. If your child has not turned this in, they will pick the schedule for them based on what they've seen on their 9th grade transcript if we don't get something from the students. So I know that Ms. Troop may be working with some of the kids to bring that in. The 9th grade preview day is a great opportunity. I think they do a lot of things about walking through their schedule. I think they hand out schedules that day and a lot of things that Coach Bowen went over. But they also kind of get to tell them some of the fun stuff they get to do in high school too. And I know that's one of the favorite things that a lot of kids like, is some of the fun things they get to do. They do more pep rallies than we do. We do a lot of things like that. But even those things, they're expected to behave a certain way to be able to participate, because again, they're trying to prepare them for that next step. I know that as we're going through this today, you may have questions as they go up, but I just want to say that I know even when Ms. Gibbs was talking to classes, they do everything they can to kind of make the 9th grade year as transition them in, do the Patriot Preview Day. They try to go over these credits. The schedule is kind of not that. And then as they complete that 9th grade year and they're much more comfortable with the building and they're much more comfortable with like getting around and stuff, they will talk to them more about additional options they have, such as dual enrollment or tech school options or that kind of thing. And all those things start becoming more and more open and available to them after the 9th grade year. So I know that right now we're focused on the 9th grade year because that's the next step for the people in this room. So I'll let Mr. Sweat come up and talk about tech school options, and then we'll see if we have any questions.
Well, good evening. I'm glad that I got to come out and visit with you tonight. I just wanted to talk to you for just a minute about Marshall Tech. Your child, hopefully, students in here, how many of you came to me before Christmas toward the tech school? 8th graders, raise your hand. Yes. Okay. And I hope they come home and maybe told you something about it. I hope some of them came home and told you, hey, this was something that I saw at the tech school that I enjoyed. Marshall Tech, what we are trying to do is we are trying to prepare your child for what they are wanting to do in their future. If your child is wanting to be a nurse, I want you to encourage them to come to the tech school for med prep. Too many times, and if you're a parent like me and you graduated in the 1900s, then tech school was one of those options that they came to you and they said, okay, how many of you are going to college? And you'd raise your hand. How many of you are not? Okay, the ones of you that are not, you need to look at what is offered at the tech school and go learn a trade so you can be successful in life. The ones of you that are going to college, y'all don't worry about the tech school. Guys, today, that is not the case. Right now, starting in the fall, I will actually be offering, she was talking about dual enrollment, we will be offering dual enrollment classes, so college classes at the tech school in 4 of my programs. Public safety, med prep, welding, and the teacher academy. So we will be offering dual enrollment courses in that. So today's tech school is not an either or. Either you're going to college or you're going to tech school. That's not the case anymore. It's you can go to the tech school and go to college. I've had college recruiters in there since Christmas recruiting kids. I've had industry people in there recruiting my kids to, if they decide, you know what, I think when I leave the tech school with a certification, I want to go to work. They're in there trying to hire those students. So it's not a either or, college or tech school. They can do both. One thing that I would hope you as a parent would want your child to do, if they're telling you, and we're just going to use med prep for instance, if your child has been telling you ever since they were little, I want to be a nurse, 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 I want you to step back and think, okay, what can they take at DAR in their 4 years of high school that is going to prepare them for nursing? In science, maybe y'all are going to offer a chemistry class, maybe a human anatomy class. So now we can take 2 classes the whole time we're at DAR, and I guess we're ready to graduate and go into the field of nursing. Or do they possibly come to me their 10th grade year, get into the nursing program, and now let's get into human anatomy and physiology, medical terminology. Senior year, now let's get them out on internships and going on clinicals, working in the hospital, working at a vet's office, a dentist's office, working at Therapy Plus, and getting that exposure and that experience. I will tell you this though, this year when internships and clinicals started, had 3 students came to me, said, Mr. Sweat, I don't want to do the nursing anymore. I've decided I don't want to be a nurse. And you're probably sitting there thinking, you know what? That right there is a failure for y'all. Those kids wanted to be nurses, and that's a failure for the tech school right there. But guys, really it's not. It's a win. Because while those kids were at the tech school, we helped them realize what it is they want to do. Because what could have happened is they could have stayed at DAR, taken the chemistry class, taken the human anatomy class, and then went to college while you were paying for it. And after you had spent about $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on a nursing degree for them, then they come to you, hey Mom, I don't want to be a nurse anymore. Now I need to figure out what I want to do. So let's spend a couple of more $1,000s for me to go to college and figure that out. So what we were able to do is help that kid realize in high school, hey, this isn't what I want to do. I want to find something else to do now. So we look at that as a win for us. So you can see here some different, we offer 10 programs. Starting next year, we'll have 10 programs. Automotive services, so pretty much working on engines. Anything doing with a car right there. And then you can see over on the right side right there, different certifications that they can earn with us. So they could leave us ASE certified mechanic and be able to go out and get a job if they wanted to. Building construction, you can see under that kind of some things that we go over. Collision repair, cosmetology, Army JROTC. That does not mean your child is going into the military. This is not an early sign up for the military right here. But if they're wanting to learn some leadership skills and just basic skills that they need in life, JROTC is a great one for them to go to. Then I've got my med prep program, public safety, police, fire, EMT. If they're wanting to go into one of those fields, Lieutenant Killian does a great job in that program. Robotics or mechatronics, doing a lot of programming, robotic arms, PLCs, those kinds of things. Then new for next year will be our teacher academy. If your child is thinking that, hey, I want to go into the teaching field, great program for them to be in. We have decided, and we're seeing right now nationwide, there's a shortage of teachers. Or we're having teachers that go into and get a teaching degree, and within 3 years, they're leaving us, aren't they? Because, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be a little easier than this. So they're going to get to do internships. We're going to work it out to where maybe one day a week, they maybe stay back and go down to the elementary school and maybe go in and observe a class, or that maybe they've created a lesson at the tech school and now they're going to go in and teach it to those kids to get them a little real life experience with that. And then of course our welding program right there. So we offer a lot of programs. Again, if you ever have any questions, or you say, hey, I want to, before I commit and say, yes, I want my child to come to the tech school, I want to come see what y'all offer there, be happy to give you a tour of it. You show up or you call and schedule an appointment with me, be glad to take you around. Mr. Bowling can get a hold of me, Ms. Fountain can get a hold of me, but it is a great opportunity for your student. I know they're in the 8th grade right now. They can't come to me until the 10th grade. They came and seen just a snapshot in the 8th grade. My plan is in the fall of their 9th grade year, I will come back, just kind of refresh their memory on what we offer. And then the students who are interested in attending tech school their 10th grade year, we will bring them back as 9th graders. Matter of fact, the DAR students came Tuesday. They will come back and we will put them in that shop that they're thinking about, they're wanting to go to for about 45 minutes to an hour. Meet with a teacher and actually get to see what it would be like to be at the tech school and the hands-on that they would get to experience there. So again, thank you for your time. I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about Marshall Tech.
So, does anybody have any questions so far about next year? Well, if you need to ask one of us a question afterwards, feel free to stop us. But do make sure you got a copy of this and a copy of Mr. Sweat's paperwork. And the same way that the middle school has been sending you all these emails and texts telling you about what's going on, the high school uses the same program. So they'll be sending out information about that. So if you've had a recent phone number change or email change, you probably need to let our office know that, because we pass that on up to them, and that's how we notify you of those things. We'll tell the students too, but we also send it electronically out to parents. And I know the high school does as well, because I get those. So anyway, that concludes it. Yes, you have a question? The Power School, like a parent portal? Yes. And when your student moves up, everything should still work. I know when we had our former system, sometimes those would be reset every year, but these just kind of follow them up. You will notice that over the summer, it's not accessible because they're not in any classes, but once the fall, the first day of school starts, or once their schedule's finalized, it'll be just like it. I'm saying this because I know I use mine as an app, but whether you use it on an app or computer-based, it will just follow them up. It just will not be accessible while school's not in session, of course, because it's not connected. I think it just is blank, it doesn't open, but once school's in session, it opens back up. So you shouldn't have to worry about getting passwords or anything like that. So I know sometimes it's a struggle to get in. Once you get in, that parent portal is extremely helpful. Yes.
Last question.
Yes.
For co-op, it does say here it's available to juniors and seniors who meet the criteria. What is the criteria?
For co-op, you may want to address co-op or
Co-op is going to be one of those that juniors, seniors, like you said, they're going to be current on credits. So all those core credits that we've been talking about, they're going to be current on credits. And then I think Ms. Keeley is the co-op teacher up here. She will kind of check a transcript to make sure they've had some career tech classes, and then she tries to place them based on what they've had. So if they've had a couple of ag classes or a couple of family and consumer science classes, then the field that they are going to work into would kind of fall in line with those.
Okay, so it has to fall in line with
Yes, she kind of looks at all that and makes that determination on what they're doing and everything.
They can't just go, they want to get a job, they can't go and do kind of whatever they want if it's not in relation to what they've done.
Correct. Yeah. And she
I know
knows
the
more
biggest
about-
thing is gonna be credits, like making sure your credits are up to pay.
Yeah,
up
and
to
she
par,
knows
too.
more about being able to say, yeah, we can tie working in fast food to facts, we can tie it to ag, we can tie it to whatever. So she can kind of, she knows a lot of the ins and outs of doing that.
I know most people I talk to, and I think Coach Bell and Mr. Sweat would also agree with this. I know most people I talk to that become juniors and seniors will tell me the one regret they had is they didn't apply themselves as serious as they should have in ninth grade. So, you know, I just tell students, I know that it's a big adjustment and there's a lot on your plate, but it's real important that you just do your very best and stay on top of things. And I know some of us don't do that in eighth grade. We just are not in that habit. Some students are, but some students struggle with that. And so you just want to make sure if that's something that you struggle with, that you start working on developing better habits of that these last several weeks of school. So.
What she's talking about is the GPA in ninth grade. You know, if you've bunch of 60s, that follows you all the way through your high school. You start out at a 4.0, but with a lot of those 60s, that thing's going to drop down there. And if it gets below, right now it's at 2.5, but it's fixing to move up to a 3.0 that you have to get in a dual enrollment class. So if you're below that 3.0, guys, when it drops, it takes a lot longer to get it back up than it does for it to drop. Okay? In order to get it back up, you got to get A's and B's, and then it just creeps up a couple points at a time. So, you know, keep a watch on your GPA, okay?
The only other thing I was going to say to that too is I have, and I'm not saying this as a discouragement. I'm not. I'm just going to preface it with that. But a lot of times when people leave us and they do really well in middle school, and we had the same thing when people did really well in elementary and come to middle. But sometimes people do really well in middle school, and then when they go to high school, they are not getting. I mean, they still get decent grades, but maybe it's just not as high as they. I don't know why I keep people. But anyway, they may not get as high of grades, or they're having to deal with different expectations than they did with some of their teachers there. I just encourage them to push through that and figure out what needs to be done, what you need to correct, and move forward. But don't get discouraged by that, because sometimes people do drop a little. Some don't, but some do, and it's just because they're adjusting to, you know, pre-AP courses instead of just advanced courses and those kinds of things. So I think you've seen some of that as well. So.
It's just different expectations, guys, and it's a transitioning period. And I mean, I've known most of these students. I had them in 5th grade. They're going to do great, but it's still a transition period. And if they let things slip, then they're going to really feel it in the next year and the next year. Okay? And sometimes, you know, parents and students don't understand that. You know, little Johnny made straight A's until he got to 9th grade. Well, okay, there's a shift. I don't know what to tell you. You know, our teachers aren't here to fail your students, okay? They're here to get the most out of them and to help them as much as they possibly can to be the best students they can, all right? It's just it's a transition. It's a different expectation and part of growing up.
But are there any other questions though? Students or parents? Sorry.
Driver's ed.
Oh, driver's ed? Well, I'll tell you what Mrs. Gibbs said in class, and again, Coach Bowen can jump in, but first of all, you have to be 15 before a certain date before you can even be considered for it, and have a permit in hand. On the flip side of that though, they do kind of place people in classes based on their age. So like if there happens to be, usually not, but if there happens to be an 11th grader that's not had it yet, they get first dibs, and then sophomores. So there's very few spots still available for freshmen by that point. It is something they can ask for, but it's not always available to 9th grade.
And it has to be taken in conception with health, okay, also.
They do a
So-
semester of driver's ed and a semester of health.
If they do first semester driver's ed, then the second semester is gonna be health. But if they don't have career prep first, then we won't even look at them. Like she said, it goes from the most aged out down.
And that'll be for every class. That's what Ms. Gibbs told them, because seniors have got to finish up their stuff to graduate, so they kind of get first dibs, and then it goes down the line. So for some of the stuff they ask for, it may be available and it may be fine, but some of the stuff may not have openings still left by that point, you know, so that's why she asked them for more than one option for their extra elective class in ninth grade. Anyway, any other questions?
With that being said, students do have to be 16 before they're allowed to drive on campus and have insurance and all that stuff. And all that will have to be turned in. And of course, there's a fee for parking on campus.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Just let us know if you have any other questions, and we appreciate y'all coming in tonight.
Hey, this thing